chance to assemble here in the meditation hall to reaffirm our practice, refuge in Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. Yesterday is the memory, tomorrow is the unknown. And in these retreats now, a lot of the reflections on just personal feeling and what one feels like as a somebody or as a person, as an individual, as monk or nun, anagarika. Contemplate this sense of me and my feelings. With a Vedana, the identification with Vedana, Sanya, Sankhara, so kind of insidious. We usually get offended or get carried away by the sense of being these feelings that we have. There's the ability to know it, isn't there? There's to objectify. That's why we have to take this and contemplate, put it in that position of an object, me and my feelings. I've been hurt, or I feel offended, or people don't understand me, or people don't like me, or I'm somebody that should be respected. Whatever way it goes, there's a certain emotional quality to it that we tend to easily believe in and follow, either or repress. So right now just contemplate this sense of me and my feelings, what I feel like, this sense of me and mine. How many of you live in that world a lot of just your feelings and your emotions? Spend the day in wallowing in that sense of being something, some kind of feeling. Feeling hurt, feeling happy, feeling confused, up and down, bored, fed up, disillusioned, inspired. Then the way we keep looking for happiness in this realm of desire, Desire is always looking for something. And the nature of desire is to always be going for something. So that when one is following desires, one is always in this process of becoming, trying to get hold of something, find something to grasp hold of. One is so caught into the momentum of desire, so used to it, that even when it just becomes habitual, just a continuous kind of aimless, restless grasping going on of anything. Now to see this in this, the Buddha knowing the Dhamma, to reflect on this being the knowing, that which knows these feelings as feelings. Is that the same as the feelings? There's this knowing, isn't it? There is this feeling, there are these feelings. They're like this. Whatever way I'm feeling right now, it's this way. And to contemplate in this way, you have to stop grasping the feelings. You have to recognize them as for what they are, but then there's non-grasping of them. Grasping, the upadana, is through ignorance, and so one is grasping feelings and becoming that way, becoming somebody who is upset, offended, confused, inspired, depressed. Now, feeling is something that we're not suppressing, but we're not identifying with it. And that's the difference. So if we suppress feeling, then we refuse to feel things. We build up blocks and obstacles to feeling. And that's not Buddha seeing Dhamma, that's just indulging in fear and in repression. Because feeling is something to understand. It's sensitivity, it's being able to respond properly to time and place, to a situation. You notice, like, say, with situations that arise during this retreat, which requires some kind of lovely response, or just suppression of your feelings, or indulging in your feelings. So say somebody with a good heart and a generous, compassionate nature isn't indulging in emotion. It's not kind of personal, it's not identification with feeling, but being able to use warmth and love, kindness, generosity as responses to situations. Where it becomes selfish is where we're kind in order to get some kind of appreciation back, get some reward. Where we do things, when we're serving others, helping others, it's in order to get praise or to get somebody's respect or to be appreciated, or because we feel dutiful or we must do this. But we're not really doing it from a sense of real compassion. The heart has not been liberated. There's still either the self-view of me doing it, me being kind, me doing this for you, me being this way in order to get something back for myself. Like compassion, karuna, metta karuna, mudita upekkha are spontaneous responses from the heart. It's the beauty of our life, isn't it? It's divine abodes, divine qualities manifesting. It's not me trying to be good, or me trying to get attention, or me trying to get praise, or me being dutiful, doing my duty. So this reflection of Buddha knowing the Dhamma isn't, I'm not asking you to just be a kind of cold objective, to be cold and objective about things. Because that's not refuge in Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. That's just me trying to not feel anything, or just see feeling as an object through an idea that that's a refuge. It's not the real refuge. But we're in a feeling, a loving, benevolent, universal system. There's tremendous forces of love, compassion affecting us. The human form can be brutal and callous, reptilian, cold-hearted, selfish, dull and stupid. We can be just stupid, can't we? Not feel anything, not care, insensitive. We can be idealistic, get caught up in everything should be a certain way, and then we become critical. All the monks and nuns should be perfectly loving, compassionate beings, and when they're not, I'm just fed up with them. And they don't live up to my standards. When the world isn't the way I want it to be. And that's idealism, isn't it? Attachment to ideas. That's not compassion, and that's not loving kindness or joy. Being dutiful, another one. I must be loyal and dutiful and obey and all this kind of, it's still a sense of self involvement. So one does one's duty and obeys all the rules and fits in, doesn't cause any problems. But still, that's not compassion, is it? Or love. It's still very much repression of the heart, living according to ideas, oftentimes fear conditioned, obeying the rules because you're afraid of being criticized, or you want to keep an order, you want everything to fit into a nice little ordered world that you can control. So that there's always this me trying to control everything through rules and holding things together, trying to keep it all together. Say on the level of emotional relationships with people, I mean, that's the reason why they tend to be so much suffering is because they are coming from demands and expectations, dependencies, emotional props. This is that whole world of just hanging on to somebody. I need you, and you've got to help me. That's a sense of me being somebody who wants something, or wants to be somebody, wants to be the one to be the authority, be the expert. I must be the one who has all the answers, or the one that gives the orders, or the one that is in the position of being compassionate to you. Or we can shift into just being the one that needs to be understood and loved by somebody else. We oftentimes think in these terms of what somebody needs is just love. Somebody's had an miserable childhood and all they need is love. These kind of simplistic answers. The human heart, when it's freed from desire and fear, then its natural response to a situation is love. It's spontaneity. But when it's bound by desire and fear, then of course it maybe creates artificial kinds of love, sentiment, and all kinds of attachments and clinging qualities and demands. This is the sticky web of emotions, of this kind of nastiness of being caught in emotional blackmail and demand, expectation, dependency, game playing. This we can see in ourselves, how we tend to, not always in, with deliberate intention, conscious intent. It's oftentimes how we've just learned to react, the way we're programmed and conditioned to react to situations. So this is where the Buddha seeing the Dhamma we begin to see these things rather than judge them. Recognizing what is a skillful response to a situation and what isn't. We have when we're using wisdom, then we can learn from our lives. We can admit and honestly look at the way it is, at the way we tend to react to life, not from the position of a critic or a judge, but recognition of that this is a result in karma, and we can see what is of benefit, what is pure, what is good, and what is merely reactive, habitual, selfish, deluded kind of reactions. The ability to know that, isn't there? This wisdom faculty. Wisdom is the ability to know the truth. But it's not admitting on the kind of personal faults and failures. It's not, I'm this kind of a person, I shouldn't be this way, or to hate oneself for having immature reactions to life. That's not wisdom, that's still the interpretation of feeling from this idea that one is a person and that one should be a certain way or shouldn't be a certain way. Like with men, I think men are very proud. One of the big obstacles, whether we say the masculinity factor, is pride. That we've tremendous kind of powerful pride that we have to identify and know it for what it is. The Buddha seen the Dhamma. You can see it in the Gulf crisis, just the masculine, let's say it's a really masculine war. It's the kind of penultimate in male kind of digging in your heels, and not budging out of pride. I'm not going to let you get me. Fight to the end like two bulls locked. I never understood that. I saw that when I was up in Scotland one time, the image of two bulls in a paddock with locked horns. Dhamma Parker and I went to the Sancta Maria Abbey in Nunraw, Cistercian monastery, for a weekend. Out in the field near the abbey were these two huge kind of muscular bulls, really solid looking masses of powerful bodies, locked horns, and they said that there's no way you could unlock them, and they can't eat, they can't do anything, they're just locked in this stalemate, till they die. So usually they can't have two bulls in the same pasture. They've got to separate them because So those are the kind of forces, isn't it, that we can identify with those images. Definitely I can. I can see that kind of stubborn pride in myself. Not a quality, a condition that I can honestly say I have none of. I can understand those bulls in a way. I mean, even though it's an utterly stupid thing to do, I can understand how it happens. If you're stuck in that state, if that's where you are and where that's all you see, then that's all you can do. You just dig in your heels and keep pushing. But the Buddha seeing the Dhamma is, one can transcend that state. One can see the tendencies, that kind of tendency in oneself, or the desire to do it, or the kind of emotional power that would compel one into that position. One can observe that. That's the reflective mind, the Buddha mind that contemplates the conditioned realm. When I stayed, one year I spent a vasa in a place in Chonburi called Wat Kauchala, and there was, and this Wat is famous for having all these dogs. They take in stray dogs. They had over 30 dogs in this place. And the place, Chonburi, is a very kind of wealthy area of Thailand, so they have so much food given to the monastery, and the monks distribute this food to all these dogs because there's so much left over. And it was used to be considered that the dogs at Wat Kauchala had better diet than the monks at Wat Pah because the food in Chonburi was very delicious. You could only eat so much food, and that was it. And you had all this piled of it. Of these nicely prepared things that they give to the dogs. It's true. The dogs at Wat Kauchala had better food than Wat Pah. Wat Pah was famous for having the worst food in the world. It was my consolation of living at Wat Pah for so many years was that no matter where I went, the food couldn't possibly be any worse than that. That's true. But there was this, because of all these dogs, you began to, I just started watching their behavior. You could get too involved with all these dogs. And dogs in groups like that are quite interesting, because in many ways you've seen how they organize themselves, how there is such a thing as a top dog and an underdog. These are actually the way it is in the dog world. And most of us know dogs just as having a pet dog, but a society of dogs It's something else. Then during the mating season, it was horrendous. I've never seen anything so utterly horrible than dogs mating. And it is a terrible thing to have to listen to and hear and watch. Then after the mating season, then the bitches have their puppies, and there was all these bitches with their litters, and there was one bitch that was a killer. I didn't know this at the time. She didn't have puppies. She couldn't have puppies anymore, but she was always jealous of the bitches that had puppies. She was a real bitch. In the pejorative meaning of that word. She was a killer. And what she'd do is she'd go around and kill the puppies of the other bitches. She's so jealous. And so one day, I didn't know this at the time, but what brought my attention to this dog was that under my kuti there's this scene going on of there was an older female dog that couldn't have puppies anymore. But she wanted to have puppies. But she wasn't a killer. She wasn't that kind of a dog. But her daughter was a bit stupid. And the daughter had a litter of puppies. But the daughter was really quite a stupid dog. And so the grandmother would chase her daughter away, and she'd take the daughter's puppies. But she couldn't nurse them because she didn't have any milk. But she'd lay under my kuti, surrounded by these hungry little puppies, trying to feed them. And then I'd have to go in, chase her away, drag her daughter, who was really stupid and frightened bitch, pull her in under the kuti to feed the little puppies. As soon as I'd go away, then the grandmother'd come running in, chase her daughter away. This was getting caught up in the life of these stupid dogs. That's how I was spending the vasa. I could understand why Ajahn Chah wouldn't allow dogs at Wat Bapong, and you get too involved with them. So then one day I heard this terrible noise out, and I went out on the porch, and there was Granny fighting with this killer bitch, and they were going at it just like I never saw anything so fierce. This Granny, this old dog, was just no way you could stop her. She was determined to kill this killer dog, which I didn't know at the time. I thought, why is Granny so upset? This is really. So I went out and I tried to stop it, and I realized I couldn't. I mean, it was just totally impossible. That they were at each other's throats. Somehow the killer dog got away, and I was quite upset. I thought, why did Granny act like that? That wasn't a very nice way to behave. So I went and told some monks, some of the Thai monks, about it. And they said, "Oh, well, it's that dog, that dog is a killer bitch. She goes around trying to kill the puppies." So Granny was just trying to protect the puppies, her grand puppies. Now we can understand all that, can't we? It's those kind of feelings are not feelings just dogs have. Say the mother fighting to protect her children. or the killer bitch, the being that's gone wild, that just hates and can't stand any other. Galaxy, is something we can relate to, which is part of our human experience. It's part also of the dog world, of the mammalian life and the qualities of masculinity, femininity. These are very much conditions that we have to deal with pride, aggressiveness. Like men we have to deal with this very aggressive nature, wanting to dominate. Because that's the karma of masculinity, a strong masculine nature, where masculinity is very strong, is a very natural kind of tendency towards domineering, domination, fighting, aggressiveness. But this can be seen in this paradigm of the Buddha seeing the Dhamma, because masculinity is not self. It's not what one is. Or aggressiveness, or desire to dominate, or pride and conceit, stubbornness, can be witnessed and admitted, but not admitted on the personal plane, like saying, I'm this way, but there is this tendency in me to be stubborn, or to be proud, to be aggressive, to want to dominate others. And see the difference between I am this way and there is this tendency. And this is to develop this reflective way of thinking takes it out of the way your mind conditioned to think about it on the personal plane, because I'm too aggressive, I shouldn't be, and the whole kind of whirlpool of self-views and attitudes and feelings overwhelm your mind. I can't help it, it's just my nature, what can I do? I shouldn't, I should, it's not fair, I don't like, it goes on and on and on the personal plane. Sense of me as a personality with my problems and my feelings. But the Buddha seeing the Dhamma, even the way one's thinking needs to change to an acknowledgement of these conditions. There is this tendency, there is this condition of pride, stubbornness, or aggressiveness, or desire to dominate. There is this. And that way, there's honesty, recognition, understanding possible to transcend, not be caught in depression or indulgence. With the pictures with the litters, one thing I noticed is that some of them were, really not what Kauchala, but in other monasteries in the northeast, I'd say that, where they were didn't get very much to eat. These mothers were so patient, and all these little puppies at them all the time, wanting to suckle. And these scrawny bitches, just hardly anything left to them, always giving to their puppies. And when they could, they kind of creep away and try to find a grain of rice or something to eat. Some of them are really, skeletons. And yet there's always this giving to their puppies. Meaning that, and the puppies eager to nurse on their mother, who is obviously totally exhausted. So see this maternal quality also of giving that one oftentimes sees in women, a willingness to keep giving, nurturing, even when they're totally worn out and exhausted. So this is like compassion. It's avalokiteshvara, constantly giving, serving, nurturing, helping, is oftentimes presented as a female, because I don't think men tend to our inclinations aren't that way on the plane of masculinity. As an ideal, maybe, but as a tendency, one doesn't find oneself in that inclining towards that. The nurturing, continuous giving, nurturing others is not a natural part of masculine condition. But we can appreciate the ideal, where I noticed the male dogs didn't seem to appreciate at all the bitches nurturing their puppies. Once the male dogs, after the mating season was over, they could care less about any of the bitches. During the mating season, they cared a lot about them. But after that, they could care less. And so the bitches had they're trying to take care of their puppies on their own. The male dogs were not, would even just chase them away. These kind of haggard, scrawny bitches trying to get a grain of rice, and big male dog would come up and just chase her away. Couldn't think, well, she's got to feed these puppies. She's the mother of my puppies. I must look after her. That's not part of the dog's life. But in the human realm, we can reflect like that, can't we? We can think. Human men can think, this woman has to take care of her children. I must protect her or help her do this. This is due to the ability to reflect, contemplate the way things are. It's like the golden rule: do unto others as you would have others do unto you. Is a reflective teaching, isn't it? How do I want others to treat me? And then you start thinking. I remember my mother saying that when I was a child. Would you, if I was doing something not very nice, or being cruel or being bad, she'd say, how would you like somebody to treat you like that? I wouldn't like that. That's reflection, isn't it? I wouldn't want to be treated like that. So then I mustn't treat somebody else like that. But say the kind of instinctual nature doesn't reflect. So when you're just caught on the level of instinct and habit, then of course one doesn't even notice anyone else. It's just what I can get for myself. And if you're in my way, get out of my way. And if you're convenient for me or I need you to do something, then I use you and then discard you accordingly. That's the totally selfish, unreflective being. Just survival of the fittest, the law of the jungle. But notice these higher qualities are the divine qualities of the Brahma Viharas, the metta, karuna, mudita, upekkha. Metta to be cultivated as a way of responding to what we don't like and the pain and the unpleasantness of life. We take metta and we take this idea of metta, of loving kindness, and emphasize how to bear with, endure, and be patient with those conditions that especially we don't like or don't want. It doesn't take patient endurance to put up with things that we like. So it's not difficult to have loving kindness for the pleasant and the beautiful and the sweet and the pretty and the good and that which pleases, that which is attractive, pleases us. So metta very much is dealing with negativity and unpleasantness and pain, unfairness, injustice within ourselves and without. To love your enemy is, in the Christian term, to love the enemy. An interesting reflection, isn't it? Because loving your enemy, how can we love the enemy? How can we love Saddam Hussein? Nasty old man. He's been parading these captured POWs, British, American, French, and that on Iraqi television. So they see these rather bruised and beat up POWs from the alliance. And they're made to say things like, stop this war with Iraq and all that. And it infuriates everyone. The West, it makes everyone more angry because of the callousness and stupidity and insensitivity of Saddam Hussein. We should kill him. Get the CIA in there in Baghdad and wipe him out. Let the Israelis have a go with their super, Mossad secret organizations. They'll get in there. The CIA is pretty hopeless, but the Israelis got this almost invincible intelligence service. They should have gotten him long ago. Saddam Hussein is a pretty wily character, obviously. Survivor, knows how to survive in the jungle. A killer animal that knows how to survive in the jungle. How do you have metta for somebody like that? How do you say, how could you love somebody like that. So love, in this sense, it's a different thing than liking. It's not sentimental, not a kind of smarmy sentiment either. But contemplate what loving Saddam Hussein is as a if one is going to put that into practice now, what is that anyway? How could you love somebody like that? Or metta towards Saddam Hussein? What can you do the way you are, the kind of character you have? Maybe you tend to be a kind of easygoing person that isn't terrible, doesn't have a lot of passions or strong feelings about it. Or maybe just the name Saddam Hussein brings strong anger into your mind. Maybe say Saddam Hussein, that blasted so-and-so, they should draw and quarter him, burn him at the stake. Somebody like that deserves to die a horrible, painful death. Maybe you're that kind of a person. Or maybe you're the more kind of idealistic person. We should always be kind, and we should always forgive everybody. And Saddam Hussein has his faults, yes. He's also done a lot to help the Iraqi people, and he probably means well some of the time. And he doesn't beat his wife. Hitler was kind to dogs. Maybe you're one of those kind of sentimental types. So learning to practice metta is to know your own character, and to not make it just a smarmy sentiment, but to learn how to bring it to a very practical application of, say, being patient with something, or not dwelling on the ugliness or nastiness of Saddam Hussein, or even your own passions, not to have metta for yourself means, in a practical way, not to indulge in self-criticism and self-hatred. And that's having metta for yourself. It's not having sentimental thoughts of "may I be happy," kind of on the ideal of nice ideas about yourself, but on a practical application of metta is to not dwell in aversion on something that you hate or don't like, not to indulge in aversion. That's practical metta. With Saddam Hussein, not to dwell in anger and hatred on him doesn't mean you're going to have kind of sloppy sentimental feelings about may he be free from all suffering, may Saddam Hussein be happy, and that kind of because that can sound rather silly. So metta isn't a kind of wishy-washiness and kind of bland, kind of buttermilk kind of color that you're painting everything, but it is, you're really working with in a very practical way with the feelings of maybe passionate aversion, anger and hatred and indignation. So loving the enemy isn't a a weak sentiment, but the determination not to be malicious or take revenge, to be patient, to not dwell in aversion on them, not to think about them in negative ways, to stop it, to stop thinking like that. And if the opportunity comes to do what is good, what is kind, rather than what is mean, what is taking revenge on the enemy.